Midweek Pictorial, March 4th, 1920. Last annual parade of the exempt and volunteer firemen of New York City, February 23rd, 1920. With black helmets covering their white hair, they pulled a hand engine bearing the engraved legend, Exempt 1842, to Union Square, where they place a wreath on the statue of Washington. Some of the men were over 80 years old. They did valuable work in the old volunteer fireman days. Boris III, King of Bulgaria and the youngest monarch in Europe, photographed in the palace grounds at Sofia. He succeeded his father, Ferdinand. Prince of Wales, photographed with the Mayor of Windsor outside the Guildhall, Windsor, where he had just received the freedom of the town. The prince's time is busily occupied in attending official functions. Novel snow remover in operation in New York. It works on a conveyor system, picks up the snow, carries it up a chute and into a receptacle, which can be emptied into a truck alongside. The Hood, named after a famous British admiral, leaving Clyde Bank on her trial cruise. She is 860 feet long, has a speed of 31 knots, and will cost, when ready for service, $30 million. Some of the mighty 15-inch guns, of which the Hood carries 8. She is a blend of battleship and battlecruiser, and the most powerful naval vessel yet built. Robert E. Peary. Died at Washington, D.C., February 20th, 1920, at the age of 64. He had been ill for a long time with pernicious anemia. Grave of Rear Admiral Peary in Arlington National Cemetery, Washington, D.C. A guard of honor from the 3rd Cavalry was stationed at the grave. The admiral was buried with full naval and military honors. Floral tributes were received from many geographical societies. Burial services of Rear Admiral Peary at his home in Washington, D.C., February 23, 1920. The casket, draped in the national colors and bearing the small United States flag that Admiral Peary raised at the North Pole, together with his sword, belt, and epaulets, was carried from the house by 8 enlisted men of the Navy. It was placed on a gun carriage draped in black and taken to Arlington Cemetery. 3 troops of cavalry and a battery of field artillery with massed military bands comprised the escort. French steamer Afrique, which grounded off Rochebonne on the night of January 11, 1920. A terrific storm was prevailing at the time, and despite all efforts, 560 persons were drowned, only 39 surviving. One of the rafts of the Afrique, picked up by the Ceylon on the day following the disaster. Of the 16 Senegalese which it carried, 2 were dead. A boat from the Afrique was picked up by the Ceylon, whose passengers can be seen crowding to one side of the vessel. There were 9 passengers in the little boat, which had outlived the storm of the preceding night through the superb seamanship of the officer in charge. The fireboat of the Rochebonne, corresponding to our lightship. It was stationed off the coast where the Afrique foundered, and itself disappeared in the same terrific storm that wrecked the larger vessel. Guantanamo is a town in the southeast part of Cuba, which, by a treaty made with the latter country in 1901, was assigned to the United States as a naval station. Since that time, the bay has been used for the battle practice of the American fleet. In this striking photograph, the American dreadnoughts are seen silhouetted on the horizon while the sailors are landing for a tour of sightseeing along the palm-covered beautiful shores of the bay. Winter Palace, former residence of the Tsar. Stone piles in foreground are remnants of stone wall destroyed by Bolshevists. Palace of Prince Oldenburgsky, enclosed by barbed wire and barricade erected during the street fighting that prevailed in the city while the different factions were battling for supremacy. The wall that formerly enclosed the palace has been demolished, and the stones used for the impromptu fortifications. Petrograd, once a brilliant capital, is now a scene of squalor and desolation. Barricade of wood on the field of Mars. It is clear from all the pictures shown that Petrograd is practically an armed camp. This is due partly to internal strife between the factions, but in part also to the hasty and desperate preparations made for the defense of the city when its capture was threatened by the advance of the anti-Bolshevist forces of Yudenich. Principal entrance to the Imperial Winter Palace with barricades showing in the porte cochere. This once massive and imposing building, the center of state ceremonies and brilliant entertainments under the Tsarist regime, has been shorn of its former glories, and now stands forlorn and desolate. Its treasures have been plundered. Front view of Winter Palace at Petrograd, showing demolished wall that formerly enclosed it. Fierce fighting took place here in the early days of the revolution, and also later on when the Social Revolutionary Party challenged the Bolshevist regime. Field of Mars, entrenched by the Bolshevist authorities during the sanguinary fighting for the possession of the capital. Under the rule of the Tsar, it was used as a parade ground. Mr. Yukio Ozaki, eminent Japanese statesman and member of many cabinets in recent years, is here seen reading the first draft of the program for universal suffrage to the leaders of the Kensei-kei, the present opposition party. Mr. Ozaki is a leader in the nationwide movement for suffrage. He is extremely able. Demonstration by workmen of various types in favor of universal suffrage regardless of position, sex, or property qualification before the headquarters of the Kensei Party in Tokyo, Japan. A garden party recently held in Tokyo, at which a comparison was made between the advantages of European dress as worn by 3 ladies present and the native costume worn by 3 others. Lovers of the picturesque may possibly prefer the native dress, but in the present social conditions of Japan, it is probably doomed. Japan is rapidly adopting the ways and costumes of Occidental nations, and feminine dress is no exception. A quaint ceremony of old Japan is here shown. When a bridge is built, it is the custom to have 3 couples of one family, namely the grandparents, their son and wife, and grandson and wife, pass over the bridge first. The figures in the foreground are the grandparents arrayed in elaborate costumes. Boat races between the crews of 2 rival villages in Burma. There are usually between 12 and 15 rowers in each boat, and the races are hotly contested, while large sums of money are bet on the result by their respective partisans. Panoramic view of Constantinople and surroundings. The city and harbor of Constantinople are among the most beautiful as well as the most commercially important in the world. The view here given of the city itself is remarkably clear. At left is the Galata Bridge at the mouth of the Golden Horn, connecting Europe and Asia. Scutari is on the further shore. Seraglio Point is at the right. The city is a triangular peninsula with a circumference of about 13 miles. It stands on a promontory of 7 hills, each of which is crowned with a magnificent mosque, Byzantine ruin, or monumental building. It has the finest site of any capital in Europe. A searchlight has recently been perfected that has a candle power of 1,280,000,000 and is far more powerful than any hitherto invented. The inventor, Mr. Elmer A. Sperry, is here shown operating the control of the light, which may be at a distance of miles, if necessary, from the light itself. Monster searchlight mounted on truck for army use. The light can be adapted to any military or naval as well as commercial use. It is used extensively by our own Navy as well as those of our allies. The New Mexico of our fleet has 8 of them installed. It is especially valuable for coast defense. It can pick out a target as far as horizon can be seen. Huge reflector of the searchlight, 60 inches in diameter. The beam has been seen 100 miles at sea. Because of the diffused light in the immediate vicinity of the reflector, the operator stands behind it at any distance desirable. Reflector of the giant searchlight, whose size is indicated by comparison with the man here shown. The mirrors are 5 feet in diameter. The heat from the searchlight is so great that lead can be melted at a distance of 12 feet. Diagram of the searchlight. There is an electric blower that keeps the lamp cool by sending air over the mirror. The core of the positive carbon, when acted on by flame from negative, produces gas of great luminosity.